The village of Vime had stood at the edge of the field for so long that no one remembered anymore exactly when it had been built. 74 residents, 20 houses, 1 well, 1 forge, 5 vegetable gardens, a market square the size of a good barn, and a church whose roof had been leaking for about 10 years already. Pastor Horn said every Sunday that he would take care of it next season. The roof leaked. The village lived as it could. In early summer, it smelled of manure and bird sherry. At the same time, this was the smell of Vime. It was this smell, this very smell, that those who survived would later remember for a long time as something irretrievably lost. Aiden Veros had lived there for 28 years. The village had truly become his home. There was simply no reason. He was a carpenter. People came to him for work that would hold, not for beauty. His father had been a carpenter before him, and his grandfather before his father. This was not called a tradition, this was called a habit. In the mornings he got up before dawn, not out of diligence, out of insomnia, which he had had since adolescence and which he had long stopped fighting. He simply got up, went out into the yard, looked at the darkness, which gradually became gray, then blue, then yellow, drank water, went to work. It was a good life. Not bright, not great, but good. Aiden remembered the morning of June 4th not because it was different, but because it began exactly the same as all the others. He got up before dawn, went out into the yard, stood there, long enough to see the darkness become gray. Then he smelled it. Not bird cherry, not manure. Smoke, not wood smoke, not hearth smoke. That heavy, acrid smell that comes when something wooden and large is burning. He turned toward the smell. It was to the north and saw a glow. Not sunset, not that time of day and not that side. A glow. Aiden stood and looked at it for about 10 seconds, and in those 10 seconds there was not a single thought. Only sight. Then the thoughts returned all at once, quickly, like water from an overturned bucket. This is not a neighbor's bathhouse. This is too big for a bathhouse. This is the village of Kor. It is 3 miles to the north. Kor is burning. Why is Kor burning? Who set Kor on fire? When? He went into the house, not hurrying yet, not understanding whether he needed to hurry. Put on a shirt, went out, and then he heard the sound. Distant, steady, the kind the pounding of many hooves becomes when it is still far away. Not an alarming sound. The ground simply trembled slightly. Aiden stood by his fence and listened. The ground trembled. It was getting closer. Neighbor Tarvel, a 50-year-old man with shovel-like hands and a voice people usually use when speaking to the deaf, climbed over the fence to him in 4 jumps. "Do you hear?" he asked. "I hear. Those are horses." "I know. Many horses. I know that too." Tarvel looked north with the expression people have when they want to be talked out of something, but do not expect it. "Those are warriors," he said. "How do you know?" "Because traders ride slower." Aiden said nothing. A few seconds later, dust appeared beyond the edge of the field where the road turned. Then figures. First 3, then 10, then more. They were in armor. Not of the local kind, different metal, different style, crests on helmets of an unfamiliar shape, with red stripes on the pauldrons. Aiden had seen something like that once on an engraving in an old book at Pastor Horn's, the Kingdom of Guess, the neighboring country beyond the ridge. It had always been beyond the ridge. "Run," he said to Tarvel quietly. "Where?" "Raise the people, women, children, old people. Tell them to the forest." Quietly now, without looking back. Tarvel looked at him. "And the men?" "The men too." "And you?" "I will be after you." Tarvel did not argue this was his best quality. He climbed back over the fence and ran. Aiden went into the house. He had about a minute, maybe 2. He took a knife, a rope, a fire striker, a cloak, a couple of rusks from the table, and an axe from the wall. The axe was his working tool, not a weapon, just an axe. Good steel with a long handle. He went out, looked at the glow, then at the first riders who were already visible at the edge of the village. Then he went the other way. At a fast walk, not running, the forest had its own path, and a man running on it would be noticed sooner. Behind him he heard a scream. One, then another, then sounds that he remembered forever and never spoke about. There were 21 people in the forest. Aiden counted them when they stopped about half a mile from the village, between 2 old pines in a natural hollow in the terrain, where they could not be seen from the path. 21 out of 74. He stood and counted them again because he did not want to believe the first count. But the number did not change. 6 women of different ages from 17 to 60, 9 children from 3 to 14 years old. 3 old people, Pastor Horn with the leaking roof, the blacksmith bear who already found it difficult to walk even with a cane, and Lena the village healer, 80 years old, who, despite her age, had reached the forest faster than some of the young. Tarvel. A boy about 16 named Sul. He was also considered an adult in the village because he worked in the field. And 2 more men, Bosk, the shoemaker, and Zane, whom Aiden hardly knew. He lived at the edge of the village and almost never spoke to anyone. 21. They were all looking at Aiden. He did not understand why at first. Then he understood. Because he had been the first to say run. Because it was him, not Tarvel, not Bosk, not anyone else. People always look for the eyes of the one who understood first. The little boy whom the young woman Sarah was holding in her arms, this was Sarah. Her husband had stayed in the village. Aiden saw how he began to whimper, quietly but steadily. Sarah held him tighter and looked at Aiden with the kind of expression that could drive a person mad. A silent question. What now? Aiden did not know what now. He was a carpenter. He built things out of wood. But he understood this. They could not stay here. The forest next to the village was the first place where they would start looking. The Knights of Guess had not come to plunder and leave. They had come with a glow and with a detachment. That means they would stay, means they would comb through. We need to go farther, he said. Where? Lena asked. Not fearfully, practically. I do not know yet, but away from the village. Families are there? Bosk said quietly. No one answered, because everyone knew that families are there was already something else. It was already past tense. Tarvel placed a hand on Bosk's shoulder, without saying anything. Bosk nodded, lowered his head. Where? Lena repeated. Aiden thought. In the forest there was a path only in 2 directions, back to Vime, and there was no need to explain why. And forward the forest became thicker, then went toward the foothills, then to the neutral mountains, which separated several countries and belonged to no one. The neutral mountains. He had never been there. No one from Vame had been there. There were no towns there, no roads, no particular reason to be there. There was nothing. Stones, wind, height. But the Knights of Guess would not come there. To the mountains, Aiden said. Someone gasped quietly once. To the mountains? Pastor Horn asked again. Yes, there is nothing there. There are no Knights of Guess, Aiden answered. That is already something. Horn opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. It is cold there. There is nowhere to live there. There, Horn, Aiden said. Evenly. Behind us is a village where people are being killed right now. Ahead is the country from which the killers came. Around us is a forest that will be combed through in a few hours. A pause. The mountains are the only direction where they will not look for us. Silence. Lena said, How long to walk? 2 days, maybe 3. We have food for 1 day, I know, and there is no water. There are streams in the forest. Lena looked at him. She had the look of a person who had lived 80 years and had seen many different things. She was not afraid, and she did not panic. She was assessing. Good, she said. That was enough. If 80-year-old Lena said good, the others would go. The first day. They walked through the forest, trying not to come out onto the paths. Aiden walked in front, laying the route between the trees. Sol behind him, helping Bear with the cane. Tarvel at the back, making sure no one fell behind. The children were silent. Most of them were frightened enough not to whimper. The little boy with Sarah kept sobbing until he fell asleep in her arms, right while they were walking. By noon, they found a stream. Aiden stopped the group. Let everyone drink. Divided the rusks he had 3. Tarvel found several in his pocket. One of the women had a piece of bread, already hard. 7 pieces for 21 people. The children received a little more. No one argued. While they sat by the stream, a woman named Donna, the same one who was 60 with dark hair and hands used to work, said quietly, Have you ever been in the mountains? No, Aiden answered. I was, long ago. My husband brought me there, just to look. She was silent for a while. There is a place there where the forest ends and the stones begin. And beyond the stones there are cliffs, where the wind is constant. But before the cliffs there are small platforms, almost level. Do you remember where exactly? Approximately. I remember the direction. Donna looked somewhere ahead. There was a spring there. Small from a crack in the stone. And a lake. Even fish there I remember small, silvery. This was more than he had. "Show us," Aiden said. Dona nodded. The second day. The forest became thinner. The trees thinned out, the ground became harder. Roots stuck out of the ground like old bones. Walking became more difficult, especially for Bear, who by the evening of the second day could move only in small steps. Two boys about 9 years old named Tom and Per, they were brothers, found berries, brought them in their palms to Auden. "Can we eat them?" Tom asked seriously, in a 9-year-old voice that tried to sound grown up. Aiden looked. "These are blueberries." "You can." They immediately ate everything themselves and only then remembered. "We did not do it on purpose," Per said guiltily. "Nothing. Look for more." This gave them something to do. They gathered berries until dark with that childlike persistence that adults lose, found enough for everyone to have a handful. They slept badly at night. It was cold. The forest did not hold warmth the way a house did. Aiden almost did not sleep at all. Sat, listened to the forest, and thought. 21 people, 1 knife, 1 axe, rope, fire striker, 1 healer who, however, was worth more than 3 young people. 3 men, one of whom had a cane. A teenage boy and 17-year-old Zane who still kept silent and stayed aside. Mountains. There is nothing there. Good. Nothing there. That means there is nothing unnecessary. There is nothing unnecessary means there is only what they bring. The thought was awkward, not fully formulated, but something in it held. The third day. The forest ended. Exactly as Dona had said. It simply ended. The trees parted and a space of stone opened up. Gray slabs, moss, rare tufts of tough grass between the cracks. The sky here was closer and bluer. The wind was different, clean, deprived of the smell of trees. The group stopped at the edge and looked in silence. The mountains rose above them in ledges, not sheer walls, but precisely ledges, like enormous steps. Small plateaus could be seen between them. Aiden turned to Dona. "There." "Yes." She pointed to the second ledge. "There." The climb took 3 hours. The hardest part was the last section, a steep stone slope without a path. The children were lifted in arms. Bear climbed slowly with Tavet and Sewell on 2 sides. Lena walked by herself, refusing help, and it was strange and right at the same time. When the last of them climbed onto the plateau and stood on level ground, silence fell. Not dead. Alive. The plateau was small, maybe 150 steps wide. Cliffs on 3 sides. On the 4th, the slope they had climbed from. In the center, several trees, 3 or 4, low and crooked, but alive. By the far cliff, a thin trickle of water from a crack, flowing into a small bowl in the stone. And a lake. Small, 50 steps in diameter, quiet, cold, with bluish water. Dona stood next to Aiden. "I told you," she said. Aiden looked at the plateau and thought, this is not a place where one can survive. This is a place where there are no ready-made conditions for life. But this is a place where one can try. The difference is subtle, but sometimes everything fits inside it. They spent the first night under the open sky. It was cold and uncomfortable. Aiden gathered everyone into a tight group by the cliff. It held back the wind. Distributed the cloaks and blankets that 3 or 4 had managed to take. Lit a small fire from dry branches found near the crooked trees. The fire was small, only light, almost no warmth, but all 21 people sat around it, and that in itself meant something. Lena examined the children, checked legs, arms, watched for cold symptoms, spoke quietly, calmly. 3-year-old Mick with Sarah finally stopped crying and fell asleep with 2 pieces of blueberry in his fist. Tarvel sat next to Auden. "What tomorrow?" he asked. "Inspection. We need to understand what we have. We have practically nothing. There is water, there is fish." Aiden nodded toward the lake. "There is stone and there are trees, even if few. That is not enough. Not now. We will see later." Tarvel was silent. "You came up with a plan," he said. "Not a question. Not yet." "Then what do you have?" Aiden looked at the fire. "For now, only an understanding of what will kill us if we do not do something. We will freeze before food. We will die of hunger before an attack. We will get sick if there is no roof." A pause. "So we do it in that order. First roof, then warmth, then food. Roofing out of what? Stone? Yes. Do you know how to build with stone? I know how to build. I will learn the material." Tarvel was silent for a long time. "Good," he said finally. The same way Lena had said earlier. And Aiden thought that perhaps this word good, spoken by the right person at the right moment, was worth more than a plan. In the morning, when the sun rose, Aiden gathered the adults. He sent the children with Sarah to the lake to look at the fish, to occupy their hands and eyes. It was diplomatic. The adults sat in a circle. "We need to understand the resources," he said. "What each of us has with them, what you can do, what you know." He began with the inventory. His knife, his axe, his fire striker, rope 20 cubits. Tarvel had another knife, a small leather bag, a coil of thin rope, flint. Bosk had an awl, needles, thread. He was a shoemaker, habit, an old knife, 2 pieces of leather. Lena had a canvas bag with herbs, several cloth packets, a small knife, a needle and thread, spare underclothes. Donna had a kitchen knife, a wooden spoon, a small pot. She had grabbed it without thinking, simply because it stood by the door. The pot became the best item of everything they had brought. The others brought a little, several more pieces of fabric, 1 coil of woolen thread, boots for most, only wooden soles for 2. 3 children walked barefoot. "Barefoot children are the first priority," Aiden said. "Bosk." "Understood," the shoemaker answered. Then skills. Tarvel knew how to work with earth and wood. Silent Zane, whom Aiden hardly knew, turned out to be a hunter. Not a professional one, but since childhood, his family lived by the forest, and he knew how to set traps and read tracks. Donna knew how to cook and understood plants, not like Lena, but enough. Lena knew herbs and knew how to stop bleeding, fight fever, and set bones. Bear, the old blacksmith, could not walk much, but knew metal and stone. "Bear," Aiden said, "do you know whether it is possible to work with mountain stone without tools?" "Depends on what kind of stone," Bear answered. "If it is limestone, it can be split without iron. It is layered. If granite, bad. Need to look." "You will come with me to look." "With pleasure. Only slowly." Slowly is not frightening. They spent the first morning inspecting the plateau. The stone was mixed part limestone, part something denser. Aiden was not a geologist, but Bear looked, felt, struck the stone with his finger with a characteristic knock, and nodded or shook his head. "This one can be used," he said. "Comes away in layers." "Do not touch this one, monolith." "So it is possible to build. We can lay walls. Without mortar it is difficult. Stone will not stand by itself without binding." "And what is there instead of mortar?" "Clay." Bear looked down at the soil between the stones. "This is most likely clay under this layer. Need to try." Aiden gave Sewell a shovel, which they did not have. He gave him the axe and showed him how to pound the ground between the stones. Saul worked for half an hour, then called out. Under the thin layer of stony soil was a gray, dense mass. Burr crouched, took a piece, kneaded it. "Clay? Not bad. Fat. Is this mortar? When it dries, it will hold. Not like good lime mortar, but it will hold." Aiden looked at the clay. "Good," he said. Zane caught the first fish, not with a net, with his hands. At the edge of the lake, where the water was shallow and clear, he lay down on the stone, lowered his hand into the water, and froze. The children surrounded him, watching. Tom whispered, "How long?" "Quiet," Zane answered, not moving. 3 minutes later, he sharply clenched his hand and pulled out a fish, small, silvery, wriggling. The children's cry was collective. Zane threw the fish onto the stone, pinned it down. "There are other ways," he said. "We can weave from branches, tie something like a snare, or make a weir drive the fish into a narrow place." "Do you know how?" Aiden asked. "Approximately. I have never made a weir, but I understand the principle. Do it." By evening, they caught 16 fish. It was the first real feeling in 3 days, not relief and not joy, but simply, we ate. A basic, primal sensation. Donna cooked fish soup in the pot. Without salt, without onion, without anything, just fish and water. It was tasteless. No one said a bad word. Little Mick ate his portion and reached toward the pot for more. "There is no more," Sarah said quietly. Mick said. "Tomorrow we will catch more." He thought about this, then nodded as if he had accepted a practical decision. Aiden looked at the children and thought, they are getting used to it. Children are faster than adults. They do not have that layer of how it should be that prevents accepting how it is. This is frightening and good at the same time. On the 5th day, Aiden began to build. Without drawings, without a plan on paper, the plan was in his head. Simple and rough, like everything necessary. He chose a place by the eastern cliff it shielded from the wind, and gave a natural wall on one side. He marked it with his feet, 12 steps long, 8 wide. Enough for everyone to fit. Big, Tarvel said. Better big at once than to add on later. This will take long. There is nowhere to hurry. They began with layout. Aiden and Tarvel selected limestone slabs of suitable size. Bear sat nearby and pointed. This one yes, this one no. Zane and Soul carried stone. The women dug clay. The children, when they were not in the way, participated too. Tom and Pear learned to roll small stones together, bracing themselves and puffing. This occupied them and gave them a sense of involvement, which was more important than real usefulness. Aiden made the first row of masonry himself. It was not simple. Laying stone without mortar means choosing the shape so that they hold against one another. Bear explained, Aiden did it, often incorrectly. Redid it, wrong again. Redid it again. By evening, the first row was ready. Low, knee-high, but even. Bear bent down, inspected it. Good, he said, slowly. You are not a builder. You are a carpenter, Bear answered. But you are learning correctly. A pause. When the rows go higher, clay is needed between the stones. Not outside, but inside the layer. Understood. And corner bonding. You saw how I showed it? I saw. Check tomorrow. On the 9th day, a problem began. Not a catastrophe, just a problem. Zane found tracks of mountain goats in the north of the plateau. This was good news meat, but they had no bows, no spears, nothing sharper than a knife. He came to Auden in the evening. Need a trap, he said, or a weapon. Do you know how to set a trap? For small animals, yes. For a goat, no. That is a different weight, a different nature of the beast. Need a pit or a snare trap. What is needed for that? There is nothing to dig a pit with. An axe and a shovel made of wood. Zane was silent for a while. We can make a bow. There is wood, though crooked. Sinew for the bowstring from fish if the guts are dried. Do you know how to make a bow? Tried once. It came out bad. Make one again. Better. Zane nodded. And also, he added, need a knife or an arrowhead? Stone, Bear said from the darkness. They had not noticed that he was not asleep. Flint. You said Tarvel has flint, one piece. A small one will be enough. Flint is split and arrowheads are made. This is called the napping technique. I have not done it, but I have seen it. Bear rose heavily. Tomorrow we will try. The attempt took 2 days. Bear broke the flint incorrectly the first time. The second time it turned out better. The third was a small but sharp shard, which they tied to an arrow with a thin strip of leather from Bosk's supplies. Zane made the bow separately for 3 days. It was a crooked, ugly thing, with a bowstring made of twisted and dried fish guts. It sounded not like a real bow, but like something between a sound and a creak. On the 12th day, Zane got up at dawn and went to the northern part of the plateau. He returned at noon, without a goat. Missed, he said. Got close, but missed. Fine. Tomorrow I will try again. The next day again, nothing. On the third attempt, he shot a goat in the leg. It ran away. Zane could not catch up over the stones. He returned angry and tired. Is it me shooting badly or is the bow bad? He asked. Most likely both, Aiden answered honestly. Zane looked at him. That does not help. No, but it is true. A pause. Tomorrow again. You are getting used to the bow is getting used to you. The bow is not alive. You yourself said the bow is bad. That means for you it is alive. So work with it as with something alive. Zane looked at him for several seconds. You are strange, I have been told. He got the goat on the 7th day of attempts. Brought it whole heavy, horned, real. The children came out to look with that mixed expression of children who have not yet decided whether to be happy or afraid. Mick reached out to touch the horn. Do not, Zane said. Why? Sharp. Mick immediately touched it, cried out. I told you, Zane repeated tiredly. In the evening there was real meat. Donna roasted it on stones slowly, unevenly. Part of it burned. But it was the smell of roasted meat, and this smell did something to people that Aiden had not expected. Several people simply cried, quietly without explanations. He understood. Sometimes a normal smell is a reminder of what used to be normal, and that hurts more than hunger. On the 18th day, the walls reached shoulder height. The clay mortar dried slowly in the mountain air, but held. Aiden checked every row pressed, rocked, listened. Bear once said, your walls are not beautiful. I know, but strong. You feel the load correctly? It is clear that you are a builder, a carpenter. The principle is the same, Bear answered. The weight must go downward. You understand that? That is the main thing. The roof was more difficult. Without boards, there was nothing to do. The trees on the plateau gave only short, crooked branches, not enough for a covering. Aiden thought about this for several days. Tarvel suggested, we came down that slope. There at the lower edge, the trees are normal, forest trees. We can go. It is dangerous. There may be knights down there. If we go at night and quickly... No, Aiden said. Not because he was afraid. Not yet. Not until we look how much time has passed and what is happening below. Tarvel nodded, but his face showed he agreed with difficulty. Aiden thought for another day, then found a solution. A flat roof of stone. This was not a village solution. Villages did not build like that. But mountain people did. Aiden had seen engravings in pastors' books mountain houses with flat stone roofs. Bear, he said, a flat roof of slabs. Possible? Heavy, Bear answered. The walls must be very strong, and crossbeams are needed to fasten the slabs, otherwise it will collapse. Where do we get beams? From the crooked trees. They are not beautiful, but we do not have an architectural competition here. Will they hold? If the slabs on top are not thick and the weight is distributed correctly, they will hold. This took another 10 days. They cut down 3 of the 4 crooked trees. It was an unpleasant decision. Fewer trees, fewer firewood. But without a roof, death comes faster than firewood. The beams were laid across the walls. Aiden checked each one, rocked, pressed. The roof slabs were thin. Bear and Aiden selected them all day, chipping limestone by layers. They laid them carefully, overlapping. On the 31st day, the roof was closed. The whole building had a large gap in one wall for an entrance, without a door yet, and one small hole in the roof for smoke. Aiden went inside. Stood there, dark, damp. It smelled of clay and stone, but it was a house. That night they slept inside for the first time. Cramped. Warm. The heat of the stream of bodies, 21 people in one room, did what open fire had not done. Aiden lay down last when everyone was falling asleep. Lena was not asleep. You did well, she said quietly. This is not the end yet. I know. A pause, but the beginning is good. Mick muttered something in his sleep, turned over and pressed himself against Sarah. Aiden looked at the stone ceiling. He thought about Vime, about the smell of bird cherry and manure, about how the glow looked in the sky that morning. Then he stopped thinking about it, because that was the past, and here was the present. The present was called 31 days, 21 people, one house of stone. On the 40th day, Donna asked him to go to the northern edge of the plateau. Look, she said. There, where the cliff gave shade in the morning, tufts of grass grew between the cracks in the stone. Not decorative, harsh, ugly, but grass means soil. We can dig here, Donna said. There is a layer of soil here. Not much, but there is. She knelt down, took a handful of earth. Poor, but if mixed with fish guts and lake silt. Fertilizer, Aiden said. Yes, nothing will be able to grow quickly. But turnip, yes. Edible sedge, yes. Onion, if we find wild one. And you know how to do this. Donna looked at him with an expression. I have spent 60 years in a vegetable garden. What kind of question is that? I know how. What do you need? A shovel. They had no shovel. But there was an axe, and there was stone, and there was Bear. They spent 3 days making a kind of tool, a flat stone plate tied to a wooden handle with leather strips. Not a real shovel. Something between a shovel and a hoe. Donna took it, tried it. Heavier than usual, she said, but it is ours. She began to work a strip of land under the northern cliff. It was hard work. The earth yielded badly stones, roots, hard ground. Donna worked 3 or 4 hours a day, and other women joined her in turns. Sol brought lake silt in a leather bag, scooped it from the bottom near the shore, where it was greasy and dark. Zane caught fish every day and carried the entrails to the bed, instead of throwing them away. By the 60th day, they had 4 strips of prepared land. Nothing had been sown yet, there were no seeds. But the soil was ready, and that was something too. Lena found the seeds. More precisely, she knew what to look for. On the stony slopes below the plateau grew wild plants, most of them inedible. But Lena knew. Wild onion, wild carrot, mountain nettle, which could be eaten when young. We need to go down there, she said. Not low, 200 meters down the slope. You are not going alone, Aiden said. I was not planning to. The two of them went Aiden and Lena. It was a strange passage. 200 meters down and the landscape changed. Less bare stone, more plants, the air wetter. Lena walked slowly but precisely. Here, she said, pointing, this is wild onion. Small, bitter, but onion. We transplant the bulb in a month it will be. Is this definitely edible? Lena looked at him. Aiden, I have been a healer for 40 years. I know what is edible. Sorry. Look here. She bent over an inconspicuous little bush. Mountain turnip. Wild. The root is small, but if planted in prepared soil, it will grow. Maybe. She pulled out several plants with roots. It will be worse than village turnip, but it will be. They gathered everything they found. During the climb, Lena grew more tired than during the descent. Aiden took her bag. Thank you, she said quietly. It is nothing. No. She stopped, looked at him. You think you are doing what you must, that it is a duty. A pause, but this is not a duty. This is a choice. I have seen people who in such a situation left alone, who did not think about others. A pause. You think. Aiden said nothing. They continued the climb. Planting began on the 61st day. Donna directed. Everyone, including the children, helped planted, watered from clay jugs, which which they had made from local clay, firing it in the fire. The first jug cracked during firing. The second held. Tom and Pear watered with pleasure, and excessively they had to be stopped. Too much water is bad too, Donna explained. Why? Tom was sincerely surprised. Because plants drown just like people. Both boys looked at each other. This was clearly a new fact about the world. Then they carefully began to pour a little at a time. On the 75th day, a conversation happened that Aiden had not expected. Zane came to him in the evening when everyone was already lying down to sleep. Can we talk, he asked. Speak. They left the house, sat by the lake. Zane was silent for a long time. Then he said, I want to go down below. Aiden looked at the water. Why? Reconnaissance. See what is happening. Whether there are still nights. Where they went. Zane spoke evenly, without emotion. We need to know. We cannot live blindly forever. It is dangerous. I know how to walk quietly. You know how to walk quietly in a forest, you know. This is a different forest. Similar, Aiden thought. Why exactly now? Zane was silent for a while. Because winter is soon. If we want to do something before it, we need to know what is outside. A pause. And because I think about Vime every day, about what is there, about whether anyone there is alive, and you want to find the answer. Yes? Aiden looked at him. Zane was silent, withdrawn but not cold. Just a person who had everything inside and on the outside only what was necessary. Good, Aiden said, but not alone. You will take Soul. Soul is young, Soul is fast and knows how to be silent. And with him you are not alone, Zane thought. Good. And one more thing. You go to look, not to act. You see something, you leave. You do not play heroes. Understood. They left 2 days later at dawn, returned on the third evening. Zane sat by the fire and was silent for a long time, then said, The village is burned. Partially, there are knights left there, a small detachment, like a garrison. A pause. There are no living residents. Those who were not killed were taken away. Silence. Taken where? Donna asked quietly. I continue densely with living characters, construction, winter, and growing tension. I do not know where, Zane said. The tracks go north, toward Guess. Long silence. Bosk sat motionless. His wife had been in the village. He knew it. Everyone knew it, and no one said it aloud. Then Bosk stood up, went out of the house. Not fast and not slow, just stood up, and went out. Aiden waited a minute, went out after him. Bosk stood by the lake, looking at the water, his back straight, only his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Aiden stood beside him, said nothing. They stood like that for about 10 minutes. Then Bosk said, I had a daughter, 13 years old. She was at home when I ran. I thought she was behind me. Aiden did not answer. I looked back once, Bosk continued, by the forest. She was not there. I thought she was ahead. She is faster than me, I thought. Silence. Bosk, Aiden said. Do not. He answered quietly. Do not say anything. Just stand nearby. Aiden stood nearby. The water in the lake was quiet. The mountain air smelled of something clean and cold. Autumn was already beginning, and it was felt. After a long time, Bosk turned around. "I will continue making shoes," he said. "The children need shoes before winter. Yes, this is what I know how to do. Yes?" They went back. Neither one nor the other said another word. Autumn in the mountains does not warn. In the village, autumn came gradually. First the leaves turned yellow, then the nights became longer. Then the first frosts. There was a reserve of time. Here, autumn came in one day. On the morning of the 82nd day, Aiden left the house and felt everything was different. The air different, the sky different, gray, dense, without blue. The wind blew not in pauses, but constantly. Lena came out after him. 3 weeks, maximum 4, she said, looking at the sky. Until what? Until snow. How do you know? I have been looking at the sky for 80 years. I know this color. Aiden looked at the house. The walls held. The roof held. But there was no doorway, only an opening stuffed with branches. This did not stop the wind at all. Inside there was nothing except stone. No beds, no benches. People slept on the ground, laying cloaks and clothes under themselves. 3 weeks? "Tarvel," he called. He came out. "We need a door, today." From what? From the crooked trees that remain. The fourth was not cut down. One tree is not enough for a normal door, then a bad door. Any door. The door was made in a day. An ugly construction of crooked, thin trunks woven with branches and caulked with moss. It hung on leather hinges, closed with a wooden bolt. When Tarvel closed it from inside for the first time, it immediately became warmer inside. Not much, but noticeably. "It works," Sol said in surprise, as if he did not believe it. "Of course it works," Tarvel answered. "I made it myself." He said this with an intonation Aiden had not heard from him for a long time, with simple village pride. The kind that appears when you have made something with your hands and it works. Auden remembered it, because he understood something important. People need not only to survive, they need to feel that their hands create something. Without this, survival becomes simply prolonged dying. In the next 10 days, he changed the distribution of work. Before they worked by necessity, need food catch fish, need a roof lay stone. Now by directions. Zane was responsible for obtaining food. Daily, fish, traps for small animals, rare trips after goats. Sol helped him. Donna was responsible for the vegetable garden and food processing. She was helped by 2 young women, Kara and Tess. Bare consultation on stone and construction. He could almost no longer walk without help, but his head worked. Bosk shoes for all the children before winter. He worked silently, methodically, from 7 in the morning until dark. Tarvel and Aiden construction. Lena health. Fine, no. This is another story. Here it was Pastor Horn. Pastor Horn was a problem. Not an evil problem, simply a man who had spent his whole life speaking, not doing. He read sermons, received confessions, gave advice. Physically, he was a healthy man of 60, but absolutely did not know how to work with his hands. For the first 3 weeks, Aiden delicately did not touch him. A person had survived shock. Time was needed. On the 88th day, patience ended. "Horn," Aiden said. "Yes?" He raised his eyes from nothing. "You will work." "I pray I support people spiritually." "You will work," Aiden repeated, without anger, but without softness. Spiritual support is good. But here we are building a settlement, and every person who can hold a tool holds a tool. "I do not know how. Can you carry stone?" "Physically, yes, but..." "Then you know how." A pause. Horn. "Children look at how adults live. What should they see?" The pastor opened his mouth, closed it. The next morning he came to Tarvel and asked what to carry. Tarvel, without comments, gave him 2 limestone slabs and showed him where. Aiden began to build a second house. Not luxury necessity. One house for 21 people gave warmth, but deprived them of air. The children coughed in the mornings. Lena said, "The smoke hole is too small, the air inside becomes bad. Besides, a separate storage for fish and supplies is needed. A place to work is needed." The second house was built faster. People already knew how. Tarvel laid the rows by himself without constant explanations from Bear. Horn carried stone without stopping, methodically, stubbornly, with the look of a man who is proving something to himself. On the 10th day of the second construction, Tom approached Aiden. "I want to help build," he said. "You are helping." "No, I carry small stones. I want to lay them." Aiden looked at him. A 9-year-old boy with a serious face and hands in clay. Do you know how? No. But you did not know how either. Aiden said nothing for a second, then said, Bear, show him the first row. Bear looked at Tom. Small. Good hands, Tom answered. Pastor Horn did not know how either, and now he does. Bear slowly laughed for the first time in a long time, the quiet, creaky laugh of a blacksmith. Good. Come here. Watch how I hold my hand. By the 100th day, they had 2 houses. One residential with a hearth and a chimney. The second smaller, colder for supplies, work, and in case of illness. On the 100th day in the evening, Aiden sat at the entrance to the first house and looked at the plateau. Lena came out with 2 mugs boiling water with mountain herbs, which she called tea. It was not tea, but a hot drink on a cold day was everything. 100 days, she said, sitting down beside him. Yes, you could have left alone, she said, in the first days. You alone are faster, need less food, easier to hide. I could, Aiden agreed. Why did you not leave, he thought. I do not know, he answered honestly. It did not occur to me. Lena looked at him. That is the answer, she said. Snow came on the 111th day at night. Aiden woke up from silence, not from sound, but precisely from silence, the kind that happens when snow muffles the world. He went out of the house. The plateau was white, not deep 10 centimeters, but even everywhere as if someone had covered it with a tablecloth. Beautiful, cold. He stood and looked for about 5 minutes, then returned. Snow, he said into the darkness. No one answered. Everyone was asleep. Snow, he repeated. Lena sleepily said, I told you. You did. In the morning, the children saw the snow and immediately went outside. It was the first real joy without any admixture, simply joy. Little Mick fell into the snow, got up, fell again on purpose, laughed. Sarah stood by the door and looked at him, and on her face there was something Aiden could not name with one word. Tom immediately threw a snowball at Per. Per answered. In 5 minutes, all the children were floundering in the snow, and even Sol, 16 years old, who considered himself an adult, got a snowball in the ear and could not hold back his laughter. Aiden looked at this and thought, this is what children are for, not only for the future, for the present. Winter brought new problems. The fish went deeper. Zane caught half as much as usual. The goats went lower down the slopes, and going out after them became more dangerous. Snow on the stones was treacherous. There were supplies. They had managed to preserve fish. Lena remembered how to do it with ash instead of salt. It was her recipe. Unpleasant in taste, but working. The turnip from the garden grew small, hard, bitterish. The wild onion gave bulbs. It was little, but it was there. For the first week of snow, they almost did not go out. This turned out to be unexpectedly hard, not physically, but psychologically. 21 people in 2 small rooms all day, every day. Irritations began. Small, insignificant, but small irritations in a confined space have a tendency to accumulate. Kara, one of the young women, quarreled with Tess over a place by the hearth. Horn began reading sermons during meals, which he had not done before, and Zane's face became gloomier each time. Tom and Per quarreled seriously, not childishly, but with an offense that did not pass in a day. Tom did not talk to his brother for 3 days. Aiden watched all this and did not interfere at first. Then he understood. They could not wait until it accumulated. In the evening, he said, tomorrow morning we all gather, not for work, just to talk. Horn was delighted, decided it would be a sermon. Not a sermon, Aiden clarified. Horn drooped. In the morning, they sat in a circle by the hearth. I need to say something, Aiden began. We have been living here for 3.5 months. During this time, we built 2 houses, grew food, got meat. A pause. But I see that people are tired. Not in body, though, in body too. Tired of being near one another. Silence. I will not say that we need to be kinder or more patient, he continued. Those are meaningless words. Instead, I want to ask each of you, what do you need to make it easier? Speak directly. The silence dragged on. Then Kara said, I need to be alone sometimes, at least for an hour. Several people nodded. We will agree on it, Aiden said. The second house is not only for supplies. Whoever wants to be alone goes there, the others respect it. I need to understand what will happen in spring, Zane said. I cannot live not knowing what lies ahead. In spring we will know more about what is below, Aiden answered. Reconnaissance again. I will go. You will go. I need, Bosk began, stopped. I need the children to keep laughing. This is not a request to you, it is just important to me. No one answered, but Sarah looked at him and nodded. Tom raised his hand as if in a lesson. What do you need? Aiden asked. Bear promised to teach me how to make flint tips, has not taught me yet. Bear, sitting in the corner, grumbled. I promised I will teach. Do not wait for the snow. Tom nodded seriously. The conversation continued for a long time unevenly, with pauses, with digressions to the side. But Aiden saw something had discharged in the air. Not disappeared, just received an outlet. Bear died on the 156th day. Not from illness, not from an accident. He simply lay down to sleep at night and did not wake up. Lena said, Heart. It had been working badly for a long time, she knew, but did not say because there was nothing to help with. In the morning, Donna discovered it. She always got up before everyone. She did not scream, simply came out and quietly called Aiden. He went in, stood, came out. Bear is dead, he said to Tarvel. Tarvel closed his eyes, opened them. How? In his sleep, quietly. Tarvel nodded. Slowly, heavily. They buried him that same day in the stony ground by the eastern cliff. They dug for a long time. The frozen earth yielded badly. They worked in silence, all the adults taking turns. Horn read a prayer. This time Zane did not frown. Tom and Pear stood nearby, shoulder to shoulder, hugging for the first time after the 3-day quarrel. Aiden stood by the grave and thought about Bear, about the fact that he had been an old man with a cane, who could not walk fast, but knew stone better than anyone here. About how he laughed when Tom asked him to teach. About his short good, the same word with which important things were said. He thought about one more thing. Bear had passed on knowledge. Tarvel now knew how to lay stone. Tom knew how to make tips. Aiden understood principles he had not known before the mountains. This is not immortality, but it is something. After Bear's death, winter became harder, not climatically, but inwardly. Death changes the air in a closed group. Lena understood this. People need a story, she said to Aiden. Something to listen to in the evening. Something besides tomorrow's work. I have no stories. Everyone has. A pause. Ask them to tell. About who they were. Where from. It will reopen wounds. Or heal. Lena looked at him. What is forgotten rots. What is told does not. He tried. On the first evening, he asked Donna to tell something. She was silent for a while, then told about her mother, how she made pies, how the dough smelled, how the window was cloudy from steam. They listened quietly. Then Tarvel told about how he first plowed alone. His father got sick. He was 14. How he failed to handle the horse, how a neighbor helped without words, simply took the reins and showed him. Then someone else. Zane told nothing for several evenings. Then one day, when the fire had almost gone out, he said quietly, I had a dog. Big, red-haired. I found him in the forest as a puppy. He died last spring. He was already old. A pause. I do not miss anyone as much as I miss him. Zane looked at the fire. That is strange, yes? People died and I miss a dog. Not strange, Sarah said. He was yours. Zane nodded. The silence was not heavy. It was good silence. Winter lasted until the 192nd day. It was a long winter. Not catastrophic, they survived. No one died from cold or hunger, though several times it was close. Little Mick came down with something like pneumonia. Lena did not sleep for 2 days, gave him decoctions and kept him by the fire. It passed, but winter exhausted them. By the end of it, people went out the door the way people come out from underwater slowly, squinting, unaccustomed to open space. On the first truly warm day, the 193rd, everyone went outside for no reason. Simply went out and stood. The sun was weak, early spring. The snow was melting unevenly. But the air smelled not of stone and smoke, it smelled of damp earth and something else, distant and familiar. Donna dropped to her knees right in the melting snow and began digging with her hands, without a tool. She checked whether the roots in the garden were alive. Alive, she said. The turnip is alive. The onion is alive. Aiden heard that there was something in her voice that did not fit into words. In spring, he conducted the first revision, sat down with a piece of charcoal and a piece of flat stone instead of paper and ink, and wrote down what they had. 2 strong houses tested by winter, 4 beds survived the frost, expand in spring. The spring with water did not dry up. The lake with fish, the fish returned to the shores with the warming. Zane's traps, 3 stable ones, regularly catch small animals. The crude fire striking set the original one survived. Soul learned to work with flint. Clay dishes, several jugs, bowls, all homemade. Shoes for every child, for most adults. Bosk worked all winter. Tools, the axe became dull, but holds 2 knives, stone tips, bows. People, 20 people. 1 died in winter. He looked at this list. Half a year ago, 21 people with a knife and a fire striker on bare stone. Now a settlement. Not a town. Not a village. Something third which does not yet have a name. Zane and Saul left on the 4th day of spring, returned 4 days later. Zane sat by the fire and was silent for a long time, but now Aiden had learned to wait. Zane was always silent when there was a lot inside. He only gave it out when he put it in order. The garrison in Weim has become larger, he said at last. There is no longer a temporary detachment there. They are building a fort there. Small, wooden, but building. That means they are staying, Aiden said. Yes? A pause, but we saw something else. West of Weim is the village of Tarn. It was not burned. It is under their control flags of guests, but alive. The residents walk, work. That means they do not kill everyone, Tarvel said. That means they leave some under administration, Aiden corrected. Why? Mira asked. Tribute. Taxes. Work, Aiden thought. Conquest does not always mean destruction. Sometimes it is more profitable to preserve and exploit. Silence. What does this mean for us? Horn asked. It means we are not the only survivors, Aiden said. There are people there living under occupation. Can we help them? Kara asked. Silence. Not yet, Aiden said. For now, we ourselves are barely holding on. A pause, but someday maybe. That same evening, Zane stayed after everyone had gone to sleep. There was a boy, he said. Where? In Tarn. We watched from afar. A boy about 12. He was carrying water. One of the soldiers stopped him. I did not hear the words, but I saw. The soldier took the bucket. The boy went for a new one. A pause. He simply went for a new one, Zane repeated. Did not cry, did not run away. Simply went. And? Aiden asked quietly. I do not know what. Zane looked at the fire. It does not let me go. The boy was carrying water. An ordinary boy. And now he lives like that? Aiden was silent. You think we should do something about it, he said. I think yes. I just do not know when and how. First survive. Then become strong enough. Strong enough for what? So that there is a choice, Aiden answered. While there is no choice, there is nothing to decide. When the choice appears, we will decide. Zane nodded. They sat by the fire for a long time still. The second summer was different. Not because external circumstances had changed. The garrison in Weim stood. Guests held the valley. The outside world was the same. But inside the plateau, something had turned over. They began to build not out of fear, but out of desire. Aiden did not discover this immediately. Gradually, he noticed, people came to him with ideas, not with questions, what to do, with suggestions, what if. Donna came first. We need a second garden, she said. At the southern edge of the plateau, there is more sun there. A little sloped, but this can be used. How? Terraced beds. I saw something like that in the pastor's book. Terrace after terrace, stone holds the earth. Do you know how? No. But I understand the principle. You know how to build with stone. I know how to understand earth. Together we will do it. They did. 2 weeks of work terraced beds at the southern edge. Small, ugly, but working. Then Tarvel came with another thing. We need a second source. The one is good, but if something happens... I have an idea how to make a gutter for collecting rainwater. From what? Stone and clay. A slanted slab water flows into a reservoir. Aiden looked at him. Did you think of it yourself? I thought all winter, Tarvel answered with dignity. Horn also brought an idea. Aiden did not expect it. The children need to be taught, the pastor said. Taught what? Reading, counting. Not because it is needed now, but because it will be needed later. Horn spoke differently than before, without a preaching intonation, simply spoke. I know how to teach. This is the only thing I really know how to do. And will the children agree to study? Tom already asked. Horn smiled slightly. He wants to be able to write down things, so as not to forget what is important. His words, Aiden thought. Good. 2 hours a day when the sun is at its zenith, there is less work. It is hot. This is your time. Horn nodded. All the children came to the first lesson. And Sewell. And after a short pause, Zane, who sat aside and pretended he was simply resting nearby, Bosk spoke about his daughter only once. On the 258th day, summer was in full swing. Evening, fire, everyone around. And suddenly he said without preface, in an even voice, her name was Nell. She was 13. She could sing badly but loudly. She always sang while working. A pause. I sometimes hear birds singing here and think of her. No one answered at once. Then Sarah said, "Tell something else about her." Bosk looked at her. She hated getting up early, he said. Every morning she had to be called twice. A small pause. I scolded her for it every time. Every morning. His voice did not change, but something in it shifted. Now I think, why did I scold her? Let her have slept. The fire crackled. Little Mick, who was already falling asleep in Sarah's arms, muttered something in his sleep. Bosk looked at him. She loved little ones, he said quietly, like this one. Then fell silent. He never spoke about Nell again. But after that evening, something in him became lighter. Not happier, not freer, but simply lighter. As if he had put something heavy down on the ground, not thrown it away, not lost it. Simply put it down. On the 280th day, Aiden made a decision that he himself considered premature. A wall. Not decorative, defensive. He gathered the adults. We have been living here almost a year, he said. They have not found us. But have not found does not mean will not find. A pause. The plateau has one convenient ascent, the one we ourselves climbed. If we build a wall across it, we control who enters. Do you think they will come? Kara asked. I do not know. But I am thinking about what we will do if they come. And what can we do? Horn asked. There are 20 of us. Half of them are children and old people, right now a little. Aiden looked at him. But the wall is not for fighting. The wall is for having time. Time for what? For a decision, Horn thought. Good, he said. Now this word in his mouth sounded different than on the first day. The construction of the wall took 3 weeks. It was not high chest high to an adult. And it was not solid in the middle. There was a passage with a wooden bolt. But it blocked the only convenient ascent. When the last stone fell into place, Tarvel stood nearby and looked. Now this is no longer a camp, he said. Then what? Saul asked. Tarvel thought for a second. A village, he answered. Now it is a village. Silence. It has no name, Tom said. Need to give it one. Everyone looked at Aiden. I do not know how to give names, he said. Then let everyone suggest one, and we will choose together, Horn said. The suggestions were different. Zane suggested high because of the location. Tarvel knew Vime. Kara stone. Dona beginning, Aiden thought. Then said, Horn, how would to survive be in Latin? Supervivere, the pastor answered. Too long. Aiden looked at the plateau, at the houses, at the garden, at the lake. How would to hold on be? Tenere. No, he thought. How would to remain be? Manere. Manet, Aiden said. The village of Manet. Silence. Why? Tom asked. Because we remained, Aiden answered simply. When we should have left, we remained. When it was bad, we remained. That is the main thing we did. Tom nodded seriously as if this were an official act. Maine, he repeated, and that became its name. On the 365th day, Aiden got up before dawn as always, went out of the house, stood there. The world was quiet, the sky still dark. The mountain air as it always was, cold and direct, without unnecessary smells. He thought about how a year ago he had stood in the yard in Vime and seen the glow. 74 residents, 20 houses. He thought about those who were gone, then thought about those who were there. 20 people. 3 houses, a wall, a garden already real, not symbolic. The lake with Zane's weir, Tarvel's gutter, Dona's terrace, Bosk's shoes on everyone. Horn's lessons Tom could already read, Purr almost could. Zane could too, he never admitted that he had not known before. 1 year. Behind him the door creaked. Lena, as usual, stood beside him. A year, Aiden said. A year, she agreed. We survived. Yes, this is not the end yet. I know. A pause, but this is the real beginning. Not what was on the first day on the cliff. That was panic with hope. And now it is the beginning. Aiden looked at the village, at the 3 houses, at the wall, at the beds under a layer of morning fog. Lena, he said, what do you think about spring? Spring? She looked at him. In spring we need to think about how to grow more. How to strengthen the wall. How to scout farther. How to help those in the valley. She was silent for a while. Yes, she said, that too. We do not yet know how. No, but we live, and the living think and search. A pause. That is the only thing required of them. Aiden nodded. The sky was beginning to lighten that same change from dark to gray that he had seen every morning all his life. It smelled of damp stone and distant forest. Not bird cherry, not vine, its own. Spring came late, not because that was how it was customary in the mountains, but because winter did not want to leave. Snow still lay in the shadows of the cliffs, and streams were already flowing across the plateau, breaking the old ice covering and carrying dirt into the lowlands. Aiden went out in the morning and immediately understood. This year spring would not be gentle. The soil underfoot was wet, the air biting, the wind sharp. The village of Manhwa woke early because along with the snow went the last habit of sleep. The turnip is alive, Donna said, standing over the beds. The onion, too. But the soil needs to be sorted through. Sorted through, Aiden clarified. The ground compacted over the winter. If it is not loosened, half the roots will suffocate. Do it. Already doing it. She said this with the calm irritation of a person who does not need to be reminded of their work. Aiden looked around at the village. 3 houses, a wall, a garden, a lake, a stone platform for butchering meat, a small shed for storing fuel. All of this they had built with hands that only a year ago had not known they were capable of such things. And still the village was too open, too visible, too vulnerable. He felt it more and more often. On the 3rd day of spring, Zane returned from reconnaissance not alone. It was visible from afar. Beside him walked a woman dressed in a torn gray cloak, with a staff and a bag over her shoulder. She moved cautiously, but not like a frightened person, rather like someone who was used to not trusting unfamiliar paths. Aiden met them at the wall. Who is this? He asked. Zane stopped. A survivor, he said, from the valley. Everyone who was nearby fell silent. The woman raised her head. A thin, tired face, but living eyes. About 30, hair cut short as if she had cut it herself without a mirror. My name is Ila, she said. Her voice was hoarse. I am from the village of Sedr. Aiden looked at her. Are you alone? Now, yes. How did you find us? Zane found me, she answered. Zane stood a little aside with his hands in his pockets. Awkward, unusual for him. Where are the others? Horn asked, already coming out of the house. Illa did not answer at once. Zane spoke. Sedr was not burned. It was taken. Some people were left. Some were taken south. Illa escaped at night. I found her in the forest when she had already been walking for 3 days without food. Silence. Why did you not return? Aiden asked Illa. Because there was nowhere to return to, she said calmly. We were put under tribute. The men were taken for labor, 2 older boys to the garrison, 3 women as laundresses at the camp. The rest were told to pay with grain and be silent. A pause. I left when I realized my sister would be next. Aiden was silent. This was worse than a burned village. Worse than clean murder. Because it meant Guess was not merely capturing, it was taking root. How many of them are in Cedar? He asked. There were 46. Now? I do not know. Horn crossed himself and turned away. Aiden looked at Illa and thought only one thing. This was no longer someone else's story. It was their story too. Illa was settled in the second house temporarily, separately. This caused the tension Aiden had expected. Not hostility, caution. The women of Manhwa did not know who she was. The men too. The children were simply interested in the new person and asked questions endlessly. Why did you not stay? Tom asked. Because I wanted to live, Illa answered. And there it was impossible? There they forced you. Tom thought about this with a childlike but already serious face. Understandable, he said. Although perhaps it was not understandable. Aiden noticed that Illa ate separately and almost did not talk. Not out of pride, out of exhaustion. She was like a person who had stayed on guard for too long and now did not know how to relax even beside a fire. Lena gave her a decoction for the cold she had managed to catch in the forest. Thank you, Illa said. Lena looked at her attentively. You can stay. I have already understood that. No, Lena objected. I do not mean the plateau, I mean the people. Illa was silent. Many come here with what they have inside, Lena continued. Fear, anger, exhaustion. That is normal, but if you keep everything inside, it will tear you apart before winter. Illa lowered her gaze. I do not know how, she began. No one knows how at first, Lena interrupted. Sit beside me, drink. It was simple, and perhaps that was why it worked. Illa sat down, took the cup. The first sip was cautious, the second already more confident. Aiden, watching from the side, thought, this is how new communities are built. Not only with stone and earth, also with a cup. 2 days later, she came to Aiden herself. In the evening, when everyone was already dispersing after dinner. Can we talk? She asked. Yes. They sat by the wall where the wind was weaker. Zane said that you have been building here for a year already, she began. Yes, that means you know how to hold on. Sometimes. Illa nodded as if this confirmed something important. I saw the guest garrison, and the camp lower down the valley. They are not just placing soldiers, they are gathering locals, men for timber, women for cloth and food, children into records. A pause. They have a man there who keeps a list. Not a military man, a civilian. Very calm. With a white bandage on his arm, do you know his name? No. But he said that villages like ours would be rewritten into the system. I do not know what that means, but I did not like it. Aiden was silent. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because you have a chance here. Illa looked directly. Down below, people are still alive, but they can no longer simply leave. And you have height, food, and walls. A pause. I want to help. What do you know how to do? Count supplies, bake bread when there's flour, sew, and... She was silent for a while. I know how to listen. Sometimes that is more useful. Aiden nodded. More useful than you think. With Illa's appearance, Aiden understood that the village had become larger not only in number, it became more complex. Now there were not 20 people, but 21, and that was enough to change the rhythm. A new connection, a new opinion, a new view. Illa did not simply add working hands, she brought information. With this information came the decision Aiden had avoided for the entire first year. He gathered the council, if the circle of people by the fire could be called that. We cannot remain in complete ignorance, he said. Before we survived. Now we need to understand what is happening in the valley. There is reconnaissance, Zane said, but we need constant one. You want to leave someone there? Horn asked. No, I want to create an observation window. Aiden unfolded on a stone a map of the area drawn in charcoal. If we place a hidden point on the southern slope, from there the road to Tarn and part of the approaches to Vime are visible. A tower? Dona asked. A small observation house, one platform, nothing noticeable. Tarvel looked at him. This is no longer only survival, he said. Yes. This is a risk. Yes. And this is a step toward war, Lena said quietly. Silence. Aiden did not deny it. Perhaps. But if we wait until they find us, the choice will not be ours. Horn slowly nodded. Then it needs to be done properly. Exactly. The construction of the platform took 6 days. It could not be built high and obvious, then it would be seen. So they chose a place on the southern slope where a rock ledge gave natural shade. From above, the platform was covered with branches and stone, from the side with a low dry stone wall. Zane was against it. He liked simple solutions, and here there were none. If someone walks along the slope, they will notice it, he said. They will not walk if they do not know what to look for, Aiden answered. I do not like that if. Me too. But they started building anyway. Illa turned out to be unexpectedly useful. She knew how to work with fabric and make simple camouflage nets from old sacks and grass. Not beautiful, but effective. Tom and Pear carried branches as if participating in a game. Kara and Tess helped with the tying. Tarvel selected stones. On the 6th day, Aiden climbed onto the platform and looked down. The view was good, not beautiful good. The road was visible, part of the valley, the distant line of the forest, and most importantly, movement on it. Still rare. Carts, lone riders, twice a detachment in guess helmets. He climbed down. It works, he said. Zane nodded, but his eyes were still tense. Then now the question, what will we do when we see something important? Aiden was silent for a while. First, we find out that it is important. In summer, the earth gave more than they expected. It was almost a miracle. Maybe because of the fertilizer made of silt and entrails, maybe because of the terraces, maybe because of Dona's stubbornness. But the garden produced a harvest that was enough not just for food, but for a reserve. Turnip, onion, bitter mountain greens, a little herbs which Dona used as seasoning. The harvest was meager by the standards of the valley, but for Mane it was a turning point. We can dry it, Dona said, and leave part for seeds. How much? If we do not touch a third, it will be enough for sewing and for next year. Aden looked at the bags. Then we will make a reserve. And a good one, Donna added. For the first time in a long time, she looked not tired, but proud. Aden caught himself thinking, people change when they see a result. When they can say, this grew, this gives more than food. This gives the right to consider oneself not merely fugitives. In autumn, the platform saw what it should not have seen. Zane raised the alarm closer to evening. They are coming, he said, appearing at Aiden's house almost running. Not to us. Along the road below. One detachment and a cart. Aiden immediately climbed up with him. Tom was already on the platform. He had to be taken away from there, but he had managed to see first and call everyone. Illa leaned toward the edge, narrowed her eyes. About 10 people, she said. Armed. Guess? Aiden asked. Yes. The detachment moved slowly, the cart in the center. In it something covered with a tarpaulin. What are they carrying? Horn asked. I do not know, Zane answered. But those are not supplies. Too careful. Aiden watched as the detachment went toward the northern turn. Then he saw something else. Ahead, below on the road, stood 2 locals, stooped in simple clothes. One held a bucket. The soldier stopped. One shouted something. The second local lowered his head. The cart moved on, and one of the soldiers forced the locals to walk beside it, as if checking whether they would run away. The scene was ordinary. That was exactly why it frightened. They are already here, Illa said quietly. Not just standing as a garrison. They control every movement. Aiden clenched the edge of the stone. That means something needs to change faster. At the end of autumn, they noticed a man at the foot of the slope. Not by chance. He had appeared for the 3rd day in a row at the same time, on the same section of road, and pretended that he was simply going about his business. Aiden called Zane and Illa. Seen him? Yes, Zane said. He is not a peasant. Why? Because he walks too evenly, and looks not at his feet but around. Plus the boots are not village ones. Good. Expensive? Illa nodded. And he always stops at the same stone, she added, as if waiting. Could he be a tracker? Donna asked. Could be, Aiden said. But why be so close? Zane was silent for 5 seconds. This is observation, he said. He is watching the slope. Silence. Watching us? Sarah asked. No one answered, because the answer was obvious. Aiden gathered everyone at night. Without the children, they had been put to bed earlier. This time only the adults spoke. They may already be looking for us, he began, or for now studying us. A pause. But if they go to the slope, it means they can find the platform. Destroy it? Zane asked. No. It is needed. Then what? Change the approach, Aiden said. We need a trap, not to kill. To understand who he is and why he is here, Horn frowned. A trap is already aggression. No, Aiden answered. It is a question. He comes to our slope, which means he wants to see something. We will show him the wrong thing. Illa looked at him. You want to let him inside? Down below, not here. Onto a false trail. And what will that give? Tarvel asked. A name. We need a name. Who is watching in the valley? Who knows we are here? Who is leading them? Zane thought. I can follow him at night. Not close. Too close is dangerous, but enough to understand where he goes. Alone? Aiden asked. Yes. No, he said at once. 2 of you, with Illa. She has a good eye. She does not leave a trail in the snow the way we do. Illa nodded, though not immediately. Good, she said. I will go. At night, the 3 of them went out. Zane, Illa, and Aiden. But Aiden stayed higher, at the edge of the plateau, so as not to show himself. In reality, 2 went. Zane moved like a shadow. Illa worse, but confidently. Aiden could see them from the platform until they disappeared behind the stones. They returned before dawn. Zane's face was hard. He is not alone, he said when he climbed onto the plateau. He has someone meeting him. Who? A man from the valley, not a soldier, local, with a white bandage. Illa immediately tensed. I see him sometimes, she said. He walks through Setter, makes records. Not military. Said he was collecting work capacity maps. It is him, Zane said. He met with the scout. What did they say? Aiden asked. I did not hear everything, but I heard the word plateau, and a name. A pause. Maine. Silence. Aiden felt everything in his chest tighten and turn cold. That means we have already been marked? Yes, Illa said quietly. And now the question is not whether they will find us. The question is when. They did not come right away, but they came on the 140th day of spring. First one smoke on the horizon, then another. Then a warehouse in the valley caught fire, clearly not theirs too far away. Guest riders passed from the side, fast, alarmed, as if looking for someone. Aiden understood. This was not an accident. Someone was distracting. Someone was forcing the garrison to rush around. They are coming, Zane said, already on the platform. Who? Horn asked. Zane pointed down. 5 people were climbing the path to the plateau. Not soldiers, not peasants. People in dark clothes, without insignia, but with weapons. Aiden immediately said, close the passage. Tarvel and Horn rushed to the wall. Women and children into the house, Aiden shouted. Everyone inside. Tom did not want to leave. I can help. Into the house, Aiden barked so sharply that the boy froze and ran. Illa was already dragging Sarah and Mick. Zane raised his bow. Do not shoot first, Aiden said. If they climb, then at the legs. Zane nodded. The 5 climbed to the passage and stopped before the wall. One of them stepped forward. We are looking for fugitives, he said loudly. If you are here, come out. We will come to an agreement. A calm voice. Too calm. Aiden stood behind the stone edge and did not answer. We know there are people here, the stranger continued. You do not have to die for shelter. We only need those who are hiding from the authority of guests. Behind him, someone from their 5 smirked. Convenient words, Illa said quietly. Aiden understood. This was a trap. If they answered, they would calculate their number. If they stayed silent, they would climb. Then one of them raised his hand and struck first. The battle began, one they had prepared for without wanting it. The first strike hit the bolt, a magical impulse, strong, sharp. The wood cracked but held. Tarvel rushed to the support with the beam. Hold! Aiden shouted. Horn, unbelievably for himself, grabbed the second end of the beam and braced himself against the stone. Zane shot at the legs of the first attacker. The arrow grazed his thigh. He fell but did not scream, clenched his teeth and rolled aside. Illa, unexpectedly for everyone, threw a stone down from the upper platform straight into the second man's hand. He cursed. Aiden grabbed the axe. Aiden, not as a weapon, as a tool. If they broke through into the passage, everything would be decided here. One of the strangers began climbing up the side crack, trying to bypass the wall. Light, fast. Aiden made it in time. He raised the axe and struck the stone beside his hand, not the hand the ledge he was holding onto. The stone cracked. The attacker slipped down, hit his shoulder, and remained lying there. 3 on the left, Zane shouted. On the left, they were already breaking the branch screen that covered the reserve passage. Tom, disobeying, jumped out with a stone in his hands. Back! Aiden yelled. The boy froze for a second and still threw the stone into one of the attacker's faces. It did not hit hard, but enough to distract him. That saved Tarvel, who at that second pulled the beam up and braced it in the passage, strengthening the barrier. The fight lasted less than a minute, but to Aiden it seemed like eternity. One of the 5 realized that they would not get through quickly and whistled. In the mountain air, the whistle sounded terrible. Below on the road, 2 more appeared. Aiden understood. This was not reconnaissance. This was a test, a check, and if he did not hold now, more would come. Hold, he shouted. Illa noticed first. On the wrist of one of the attackers, there was a white bandage, not like a soldier's, like a clerk's. It is him, she shouted. Who? Aiden asked. The man from the valley, the one who keeps the lists. The word lists struck harder than a weapon. Aiden looked. Indeed, not a warrior, not a soldier. The same calm type she had described. He stood slightly aside, did not climb the wall, watched. He is not a fighter, Illa said. He is here for us. For what? To understand how many of us there are, who is in charge, who makes decisions. Aiden understood at once. This was not just a search for fugitives. This was administration. They were not looking for people structure. Tarvel shouted, "The beam is cracking!" Aiden rushed to him. The attackers were no longer trying to pass by force. They began to retreat too quickly, too organized. "They are leaving," Zane said. "Because they got what they came for," Lena said quietly, appearing at the doors of the house. "They saw us." Aiden looked down. In the place where the man with the white bandage had stood, there lay a small dark object, like a seal or a fragment of a tablet. He did not have time to examine it. The attacker picked it up and left. But Aiden had managed to see the main thing. The white bandage was not military. There was a sign on it. 3 vertical lines and a circle below. "What is that?" he asked Illa. She turned pale. "It is the Chancellery of Guess," she said quietly. "The Resettlement Administration." Silence. "They are not just looking for us," she said. "They are looking for those who can be rewritten into their lists." No one slept that night. The children were frightened, even Tom, even Pear. They were seated in the house, given hot decoctions. Someone sat beside them all night. Sarah cried quietly, half-voiced, when she thought no one could hear. Aiden walked between the houses, checking the damage. The passage had held, the bolt was broken. One support had cracked, the wall was intact. No one had died. That was almost a miracle. In the morning, he gathered everyone. "They will return," he said. "Now for certain." "Why?" Donna asked. "Because they were checking us. And we did not fall. That means now they know someone is here and that this is not an empty place." "Does that mean we need to leave?" Horn asked. Aiden looked at him. "Where?" Silence. "Below is their garrison," he continued. "They have already been in the forest. We will not return to the valley. That means all that remains is to fortify here." "Until war?" Zane asked. "Until a choice," Auden answered. "Until we are ready at least one step higher." Illa stood nearby, very quiet. "Then you have little time," she said. "Why?" "Because after such a check, they usually return not alone. They began building the 4th house at once, not residential storage and work." Aiden understood. Now this was no longer just about survival. If they came here again, supplies were needed, tools, a place for repairs, a room for the wounded. Illa became part of this work almost immediately. She knew how to count, keep records, distribute flour, grain, dried fish. This freed Donna, and she could finally work on the garden without constant stress. Zane began making not only bows, but also simple spears, not for attack, for defense. Horn suggested teaching the teenagers not only reading, but also writing. "Records are needed," he said. "If people come later, we must be able to pass on memory." "From whom?" Tom asked. "From us in the future," Horn answered. Tom nodded as if this were an important state idea. By the middle of summer, Maine had become different. No longer a camp. No longer just a surviving corner. Streets, even if short. Work areas. A reserve warehouse. An observation platform. A wall. A house for the sick, which had never been needed but was ready. For the first time, Aiden allowed himself to think. We have a place. Not property, not victory. A place. Illa brought news at the end of summer. She returned from the valley with Zane, a short reconnaissance, careful as they had already learned to do. Sat by the fire and was silent for a long time. "Speak," Aiden said. "New people appeared in Tarn," she began. "Not soldiers, builders. The same man with the white bandage came with them, the scribe. Yes, but now he is not just keeping lists, he is recounting households." Illa swallowed. "They are looking for unregistered settlements." "That is what he said." "Us?" Horn said. "Yes." And also, she hesitated. "They were talking about the second stage. That means the first wave is collection, the second is transfer. Those who live in the valley may begin to be resettled." Aiden felt everything inside him clench. "Where?" "I do not know, but not to anything good." Zane placed a small piece of wood on the table. A sign was carved on it, those same 3 lines in a circle. "Took it from a box near their warehouse," he said. "It is the administration seal." Horn looked at the sign for a long time. "They are rewriting people," he said quietly. "Yes," Illa answered. The silence was heavy. "Then we need to understand how they do it," Aiden said, "and how to break it." Everyone looked at him. "Now?" Tarvel asked. "Not now, soon." The summer that should have been simply a season of work became a season of training. Auden understood that the village of Manhwa could no longer hold only on construction. Now it was necessary to build people. He distributed mentorship. Tarvel taught the teenagers to work with stone. Zane tracks, observation, traps. Bosk leather, sewing, shoe repair. Donna earth and seed storage. Horn reading, writing, counting. Illa supply accounting and planning. Lena medicine and herbs. Aiden a little of everything. And this surprised even him. Not because he wanted to be in charge. Simply more and more often people came not for an order, but for a decision. And he could no longer pretend this was temporary. Tom turned out to be an especially capable student in writing. "Why do you write so quickly?" Horn asked. "Because I am afraid to forget," Tom answered. "What exactly?" Tom looked at him. "Everything." Horn was silent, then nodded, then right. It happened on the 220th day. Aiden was at the northern bed when Zane climbed onto the wall and immediately called him. "Here." There was a detachment on the road below. Not large, 7 people, but now they were walking openly, not hiding. 2 in armor, 2 with crossbows, the rest in gray, clearly not troops, but people from the administration. With them was that same scribe. White bandage, sign on his arm, calm face. He stopped right at the foot of the path, raised his head, and looked at the wall. "They know," Zane said quietly. "Yes," Aiden answered. The scribe shouted, "I announce by the duty of the administration, this area is considered an unregistered settlement on land under the jurisdiction of the Crown of Guess. Everyone located here must appear for registration and redistribution." Horn turned pale. "Redistribution?" he repeated almost in a whisper. Illa clenched her fists. Aiden stood motionless. "What should we answer them?" Donna asked. He thought for a second, then said, "Nothing." "How is that?" Tarvel asked. "Because this is not negotiation. This is marking. If we answer, we confirm that we are here. If we stay silent, they know anyway." "Then?" Lena asked. Aiden looked at the detachment. "Then we remember faces." The scribe waited for some time, then waved his hand. They did not go up, simply turned and left. But now the question was closed finally. Maine was no longer invisible. On the 365th day of the second year, Aiden woke before dawn again. He went outside, as always. Maine was no longer the place where they had come to save themselves. It had become a village that had to learn to live among foreign power and its own memory. There were 5 houses, more precisely 4 houses and 1 more small house for the sick and old tools. The wall had become higher, the terraces at the southern edge fuller, the lake partially fenced. On the platform they now took turns on duty. 26 people. The 26th was a boy from the valley. Zane had brought him a week ago, thin, silent, with scraped knees and the eyes of a person who had learned too early what fear was. His name was Nero. He had fled resettlement. When Aiden first asked why he had gone with them, the boy answered, "Because you did not tell me I had to wait. That was enough." Aiden stood at the edge of the plateau, looked at the sky, and understood. Now they had not just survival, now they had responsibility. Lena came up beside him. "Year 2, she said. "Yes." "And what do you feel?" Aiden looked at Monet, at the houses, at the walls, at the garden, at the people who no longer looked like fugitives. "That we have not finished yet," he answered. Lena nodded. "Correct. And what next?" "Next?" She looked down into the valley. "Next they will come again. This time no longer with a check. With a decision." Aiden was silent, then quietly said, "Then we will have a decision too."